Happy Mindful Monday, Conscious Leaders. So we all have our own lens with which we view the world. And so this is based on our own experiences, our past, and even the influence that we have from other people around us and throughout our lives. And so oftentimes in certain situations, since we all have our own experiences, we can perceive a situation, perceive an experience, and we ultimately create a story about what that means to us. And this is generated by very much a feeling that we're experiencing, as well as a thought we're having. And then from there, we start to just create one story and usually tend to stick with that story. And so an example would be, let's say that you are at a party and one of somebody that you really look up to, that you really value, and they walk into the party and you're like, hey, what's going on? And they look over and they look up and they're like, and they turn, and you create this big story in your head that they're mad at you, or maybe you did something wrong, and maybe you sift through that story and kind of let it spin, and ultimately later on you found out that actually his cat died and had nothing to do with you, right? So we have the opportunity to really see in a moment that, wow, this story that I'm creating is not only not true, but I am not even present anymore. I'm spinning all over the place, and this can happen at work, this can happen in your own personal life, and so it's really an opportunity to sit with it and look at it slightly different. In addition to that, let's say also that I actually had this one client who her story was she had a colleague at work who she really actually didn't like, where for her, the way in which she perceived, the way in which he experienced life and the way he projected life was that he didn't like women. He was rude to women. He didn't respect women. And so her big story every day when she went into work fired her up. And she got mad every day. And she was like, look, he doesn't respect me. And everything that he did, it didn't matter because she was looking for that. It made her upset. And so as we're talking about it, I just ask her a few questions. And that's what I want to really point that out today is that, first of all, become aware of any story that you have in your head, where it's your story. Yet if you really get honest with yourself, it may not be the actual quote unquote truth of what's occurring, right? And then from that point, we go, am I willing to let go of my story? And that takes us putting down basically our ego. And we get the chance to go, okay, you know what? This doesn't feel good. I just keep having these thoughts. It's actually getting in the way of my day or having connection with certain people. And I'm realizing since it's catabolic energy, it's heavy and it's sitting with me and I kind of take it home with me. And we say, all right, maybe I am willing to let go of my story. And at that point, we can go, okay, so what are some wonder questions, right? Because that's what conscious leaders do, is that we shift from asking why is this happening? Why did he do that? Why is he that way? Because that just keeps us in the same place. Is we instead ask those wonder questions and we go, I wonder actually what their side of the story is. I'm sure if I get curious and maybe start to ask some questions to them so to better understand them, I might actually see that my story isn't true. Or what story could I create about this person that would make me feel better? Fantastic wonder stories. So when I was speaking with that client, I said to her, so what I'm hearing is that your story of this person, now you're not certain if this is true, is that he doesn't respect women and he just continues to put you down, right? He doesn't see your value because you're a woman. She said, yeah, that's my truth. That's what happens. I was like, okay, so how does that story feel? And she was like, it feels awful. I hate it. I hate being around him. It just doesn't feel good. And I was like, okay, so what could be a new story? Whether it doesn't matter if it's true, right? Because we're creating all the time stories in our head all the time that it becomes our truth, but who knows? That's like you growing up and having a big story about your childhood. And then you talk to your sibling and all of a sudden they have an entirely different story. Whose story is true? They both are, or they're both not. So she was like, okay, so she comes up with this whole big story that as a kid, he had a father that was really verbally abusive to his mother and would really put her down and disrespect her, and because of his own insecurities. And so his mother grew up not really having a voice, not really knowing that she was worthy and everything else. And so he was modeled this. And so ultimately that what he in turn started to do is he thought in order to be a man, that's what he had to do. Now, again, we don't know if the story is true, but the minute she shifted that story in her head, she had compassion for this man. Each day she went to work, she felt better about being there. You get it? So when you notice yourself having a story, an interpretation about something, someone, an experience, an event, in that moment, start to ask yourself, am I willing to get curious about this right now? Am I willing to let go of my interpretation, recognizing there might be another one available? And what questions can I ask myself to really dive into seeing this from a different view? So remember, we're constantly triggered by external stimuli. And the more we become aware of those moments when we do start to go into story, we take our power back. Meaning we have the opportunity to experience a feeling that actually feels good, an experience that actually feels good, instead of staying stuck in the story and the drama of something that may not even be real. So have fun this week. This week, I invite you to start looking at any kind of stories, interpretations that you might have, and then go through the steps, right? Am I willing to get curious about this? Am I willing to let go of my story? And what questions can I ask? So feel free to reach out. Have a fantastic week, and I'll see you soon.